Dutch, in the end, Herc, winners by a final score of 3-1. Been a while since we got to see the U.S. in knockout round action at the World Cup. I thought you were tense during the group phase. You were even more fired up to watch this one.
No, not fired up. A little disappointed.
Really?
Yeah.
But even during the game, I could sense, like, you really, really wanted this team to win. All that talk of, like, free hit, free roll. Once the game starts, and I think probably the fans felt that too.
It's not that I wanted them to win.
You believe they could?
Well, I realistically did believe they had a fighting chance, and that's what made it even more disappointing. It's the way they go out. I knew it was over once everybody started agreeing with me.
Right.
Once the FC panel, once the Picante panel
Yep.
started going, you know what, you convinced me. I started thinking to myself, this is way too easy. It's not going to go down this way. And I got that feeling the first 15 minutes of watching the game, the posture from both teams,
Right.
it left me a little unsettled.
Yeah, it was very interesting, kind of in the 24 hours leading into this match, how many people that we talked to around, and you heard it from our colleague over at ESPN Netherlands, Pascal Kamperman, he called it 50-50. Our colleagues at ESPN Argentina, ESPN Mexico, everybody said, hey, the U.S.
FC guys,
really
Shaka, Craig.
really has a shot here. Frank Leboeuf had
Oh, that was over once Frank picked the U.S.
right. He had the U.S. to win in penalties. Unfortunately, it does not go down that way. So we're going to cover this from every angle. We got Casey Keller, who's going to be joining us in just a little bit. We got Alexis Nunez, who's live outside the stadium. She, of course, will bring us the fan perspective. We're also going to break it down from a tactical perspective with El Profe Juan Carlos Osorio. But, Herc, let's just get your first raw reactions as the U.S. are out in the round of 16.
My first raw reaction is, yes, this Netherlands team is better man for man. There is no argument about that. Where they play, their curriculums, ceiling, whatever you want, they're just better man per man. I think it's evident. But even more so when we talk about the coaching. Louis van Gaal ate Greg Berhalter's lunch.
Why? What specifically?
Louis van Gaal and this Netherlands team never wanted to run with the United States men's national team. Frankie de Jong, De Roon, they're not going to run with Weston McKennie, with Tyler Adams, Yunus Musa. They know that's the strength of this core of this team. They never wanted that. But they knew that they weren't good enough to beat them on the ball with their quality. So while Greg Berhalter planted this team with their two outside backs to come in as interiors, okay, and play make, if you will, and at times Serginho Dest got into the final third and he looked dangerous. Anthony Robinson, not so much. But when they lose the ball, it's Weston McKennie and it's Yunus Musa out of position, and that ball is immediately coming. It's De Roon. It's Frankie de Jong immediately coming down the heart, down the spine of your defense. And it's an immediate opportunity for the Netherlands team. It's immediate opportunity for Memphis Depay. It's immediate opportunity at the goal of Matt Turner. It was just very naive. Very naive that you could think that going into a game with a team like the Netherlands, you were going to have more quality on the ball. They let you have it.
Yeah.
They disguised that possession for you. And yes, you had an early opportunity with Christian Pulisic, but this pretty much went down the way that Louis van Gaal had envisioned it.
So it feels like 3 hours ago now, but the first 10 minutes of the game, from a U.S. perspective, I'm thinking, this is great. Pulisic has the obvious chance and misses, but it is one-way traffic.
70 to 30% possession.
You're thinking,
I mean, it wasn't even close.
This is exactly what the U.S. wants. You're telling me that's not what the U.S. wants, because on the counter, I mean, that goal, you got to admit, that goal from Memphis Depay, and we'll break it down a little bit later, but that came totally against the run of play. Like, wasn't the strategy effective in those first 10 minutes? Or is that actually? And
if you look at the opportunity that Christian Pulisic has, it's almost a 50-50 ball that gets kind of whipped right back in, and he finds himself in an onside position to his own surprise, and he's too quick instead of composing himself. And, well, Nuber has that save, and it stays 0-0. But this is exactly what this Dutch team wanted, what Louis van Gaal wanted. They wanted you to have possession, and they will pick you apart in transition. Now,
they didn't want the U.S. to be that dangerous. They didn't want the U.S. to be that dangerous.
They had one. Besides that, what did they have in the first half?
Robinson got in behind in the 7th minute. McKennie had a quick throw into Pulley behind. Those are in the first 10 minutes. That's all I'm talking about.
A clean look besides Pulisic. What do they have in the first half? So it went exactly how the Dutch wanted this to go. And they basically said, have the ball. You're not good enough to beat us.
Yeah.
We are when we can counter at pace with you. They didn't want to run with you. These guys, the Netherlands looked tired, fatigued in those final 10 minutes. And that's why I think once the kitchen sink was thrown, once you had guys coming on like Giovanni Reina, you had Haji Rai, you had Brendan Aronson, Yedlin now, you're getting all stretched, they're getting stretched. Yes, you had more chances at goal, okay? Because they are tired now, but they're also picking you apart in those transition moments when you are stretched, and you can see that. The third, the fourth, always look closer than the first for the U.S. That's a reality. The third, the fourth of Netherlands always look closer than the first. If it wasn't for Matt Turner, this game would have been over a long time ago.
You know, we're going to talk a lot about the manager, and I'm sure that he deserves a certain amount of the criticism, but we got to focus on the players here as well, because to your point, I think we saw the gap in quality. As golden of a generation as this is for the United States, and as not golden as a generation as we've been told it was for the Dutch, you still see the gap. And I think you can fairly even say we see it in those first 10 minutes. The clinical nature of Memphis Depay, and it's not just Depay, it's everybody involved in that build-up. Denzel Dumfries, when he gets into the final
player
third,
of the game.
It's not a if he's going to put in a dangerous ball, it's where is he going to put the dangerous ball to.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, when we talk about the midfield, where we felt there was a clear physical advantage for the United States, you know what still matters at the end of the day? What you do on the ball, your technique, your ability. And I think generally I've always felt this about the American game, the American development system. We put a premium on big kids, right? And on athletic kids. And what you saw from this Dutch team, especially in the build-up to their 2 goals in the first half, is tiki-taka, ping, 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 ping. And almost, Herc, I felt like using the athleticism that we talked about with this U.S. midfield against them. You bring them in a rush, and then you're out the other side, and it's easy.
It's very easy. It's very easy for Frankie de Jong. And when we see a player of that quality, that caliber, it looks like he didn't do a lot, but he was so influential when he did have the ball, in the way he orchestrated, in the way he got players going. You spoke about Denzel Dumfries. Serginho Dest had an opportunity to play with the Netherlands, okay?
Yeah.
Serginho Dest is one of the better players of the U.S. men's national team. He had one of the better tournaments in this World Cup. Serginho Dest is not playing over Dumfries.
Yeah, I mean, Pascal told us he probably doesn't even get in their 26-man squad.
And Dumfries was probably the best player on the field today.
Yeah.
And you can see when you talk about the talent level, and look, we're very proud of these players, you know, from a CONCACAF level, a CONCACAF perspective of how they did this tournament. The way they reacted from that second half against Wales, the total performance versus a very good English team, a very emotional game in Iran, and how they handled that. It's a very young team, and you should be very proud of how they handled those moments. But you can see the evident gap in talent when it comes to the players. Serginho Dest, one of the better players, isn't on a Denzel Dumfries level, not right now. But it's even more evident when you look at Louis van Gaal and that resume, that CV, and his actual tactical game plan today, and how he just swallowed whole Greg Berhalter.
So we criticized Tata Martino with Mexico against Argentina for not being aggressive enough. I actually thought the U.S. setup in the first half was very aggressive. There was times at the back where they left it 2-on-2, and there was just tons of space. But isn't that kind of dying as you lived? Is there not some praise there?
No, it's different. It's being naive. Listen,
is that only hindsight?
It should, maybe, but
like had the players look. I just want to throw a stat at you.
Where do you
something
work?
you point out.
What do we do?
We break it down.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, what I'm trying to tell you is,
I don't believe Greg Berhalter put his attacking players in a bad spot in the first half. I think he put them in good spots, and they didn't convert.
I think he put them in a terrible position.
The attacking players.
Yes, because you have Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson, who did not have a good game and had a very heavy foot. He's had a heavy foot on him all tournament, even more so this tournament. And I give him a ton of credit for playing on one ankle. Basically, that's what he's been doing, playing on one leg. But when you ask those two players to come in as interiors, and what I mean by interiors, and people should realize is, you're asking them to carry the ball from a wide position inside and play make as eights. Okay? And what happens there is Yunus Musa and Weston McKennie will have to evacuate that space, and they will go wide. And sometimes it looks like they're the right back or the left back, or they're a winger, so to speak, and it's Timothy Weah coming inside, and it's a lot of fluid movement. That is all good. That is great when you have the ball, and it looks very good. It looks very nice. But you know what happens if you lose the ball? The heart of that central midfield, you know where they are? Next to the touchline.
Yeah, they're
and you know where Tyler Adams is?
On an island.
1v2. Yep. And all of a sudden, Tyler Adams has to worry about 1v2, Frankie de Jong and De Run, and then he's got to go try to track back Memphis Depay.
Yeah.
And when he can't get there, guess what Memphis has? A free chance on goal. So what I'm trying to tell you, it was very naive. It was always going to be a game of pick your chances. You have to be very proud of how they played in certain matches in this tournament. But definitely, listen, goals change games.
Yeah.
Christian Pulisic scores that goal.
It's a different game.
Motion is different, not only for the U.S. men's national team, but for the Netherlands, and it can be a different game. But you have to be smarter than that. I think that's where I'm disappointed with Greg Berhalter in this U.S. men's national
The stat
team.
I was going to throw out at you at the first half before we move on to the kind of the game-changing moment, 93 touches for the United States in the Dutch final third, just 29 for Netherlands in the American final third. But to the point about quality, it's what you do with those touches. The Dutch were clinical throughout. The Americans obviously were not. Let's get to the game-changing moment, because it is the goal that in the end puts Netherlands on top in the first half, 10 minutes in. It's a beautiful finish from Depay, but for me, really, it was a beautiful build-up from deep in midfield.
Deep in midfield, Denzel Dumfries again, very instrumental in the attack, and it's so difficult when you're trying to chase a player of Memphis Depay's quality, his pace. And he was brilliant throughout the game, not only just how direct he can be, but how smooth he is on the ball and his ability
he was wide
to turn
open.
players.
Who's got to be there?
He was wide open because you're telling me there's no problem with the way the U.S. men's national team played, and you're okay with Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson committing numbers forward, but you're also asking me why is he so wide open, right? Because other players have to commit. Other players have to do things when that happens.
Where's Adams? Where's McKinney? Where's the runners?
Exactly.
That's a run.
Exactly. Musa and Adams are out wide, like I just told you. They're lost in that play. They're eliminated. And then you're putting center backs man per man. And Memphis Depay, so just clinical as he is, it's not a hard run.
It's a brilliant run.
It's a brilliant run because most forwards will look for that near post run. It's a brilliant run in the sense that he holds that run. He knows exactly where this ball's coming. It's clipped back, and he's there.
Yeah, it's obviously the game-changing moment, but you could point out a million different moments. The goal that falls just before the half. Give me the player's psychology there, because if you're the U.S. at that point, you're saying, okay, 1-0, we got a shot. But I imagine that changes not just the player's psychology, but then Greg Berhalter's halftime speech, halftime approach, everything is
moves.
Everything's blown up.
His hand is forced once that second goal comes in.
Such a dagger.
There are moments that change games. One of those moments is the first goal, absolutely. But you can maintain that.
Yeah.
You can work with that. You can get players to rally and know that you're still only a goal in this. It's just, hey, one goal, you're back in it, it's tied game, nothing happens. But when you're so close to halftime, all you want to do is see it out, regroup at half, okay? We'll talk about it in the dressing room. We'll gather our thoughts, we'll collect ourselves, we'll go back out there and start anew. But when that second goal comes in, right before half, it's just deflating. It feels like your soul is leaving your body. You can literally see it on the field, these players, that's a sinking feeling. And you go into halftime, and who knows what's being said, what's going on, how the coaching crew is responding, who's talking to who's seeing who warm up, what's going through those players' minds, what's going through Greg Berhalter's head. It all gets thrown for a loop in a matter of seconds.
So you talked about the Christian Pulisic miss. What'd you make of his performance overall? And I think we got to put it in context. Coming off the pelvic contusion, not at 100% pretty clearly. But what'd you think of his work on the field today?
He showed a lot of heart, a lot of battle. Wasn't as clean.
Yeah.
Wasn't as efficient.
He wasn't what he is.
He wasn't what he is, and you have to acknowledge
that. And what he needs
that.
to be. What he needed to be today for this team, clearly.
And we spoke about that. If anybody needed to be that man today, it was Christian Pulisic. He had that chance. He wasn't as composed as he normally is. I think he may have rushed himself. I don't know if he thought he was in an offside position, so just instinct and you shoot, but he had more time on the ball than he actually realized. It's a great save in the end by Norbert. But it's something that he needed to make. He needed to score that goal. And listen, goals change games. We said this. Maybe it's a different game if he puts that ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, there was a few chances where he gets into a dangerous spot, and the final pass just didn't come off. Either it was our target or the Dutch broke it up. And, again, not to pick on Christian Pulisic, but he's been the guy through the first 3 games for this team, and clearly maybe just didn't have that 100% that he needed in a knockout round game here at the World Cup. All right, let's call on our first guest on today's edition of Futbol Americas, Casey Keller, who's been a part of not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 World Cup teams for the U.S. men's national team. Casey, the U.S. out in the round of 16, your first reaction to the game that we just witnessed?
Well, I mean, I've been listening to you guys, and I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying. The idea that you were going to step into this game, press Holland from, the first minute. And it was working. Look, there was points, but then there was a point where I was thinking, okay, now press 5 minutes, drop back, be a little bit more professional here. Don't give those opportunities for guys to come sneaking in behind you. But no, they just kept pressing and pressing and pressing. And then, look, it was a fantastic play that the Dutch put together to open up that first goal. But when you have players pressing, and then once that quick 1-2 touch passing puts those players behind you, there's a lot of space to be exposed behind. And you saw the difference in the match of how clinical the Dutch were in the final third. And I mean, that was really the difference. Look, you can talk all you want about the 80 yards in midfield, from 5 yards outside the 18 on both ends, but that's not where games are won. Where games are won is how you defend in one box and how you score goals in the other. And the Dutch showed you that's exactly how you get yourself into the next round, is how clinical you are both defensively and on the offensive side of things. And look, I love the way the team played, but there's a point where you just, and I heard you said it multiple times, just being a bit naive, and it seemed a bit naive at times, and they got punished for it.
Casey, you use the word professional. Dive in there. What do you mean by that?
Well, to think that you're going to press this Dutch side for 90 minutes. What I love seeing is a team that's super well organized where, okay, here's my opportunity to win the ball in the defensive third. Okay, it's not on. Okay, back up. Get good defensive shape. Now we'll keep good shape, wait for the opportunity, win the ball back, work something. Okay, put a good ball in the box, win the second ball, see if you can score a goal. Pick and choose your times. It just seemed like it was, okay, we're going to have our way with you. We're going to press you. We're going to press you. And I don't think they quite gave this Dutch side as much respect as they deserved. I, like everyone else, don't think this is a world-class Dutch side by any means. And I think the U.S. exposed a lot of their weaknesses, particularly their athleticism. There was times when the U.S. was definitely the stronger side athletically in midfield, but then there was also those times when the Dutch were able to show their technical ability, and because of that, it exposed players in poor positions because they were advanced when they probably shouldn't have been, and it's a learning lesson. It happens. You get exposed by good teams, and where the U.S. was successful in this tournament was not conceding chances. That's why they got themselves to this point. They elected to be more aggressive, open themselves up defensively, and they paid the price for it.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week, subscribe to ESPN+.